The distress call. The crystalline spires of the Concordiate's grand assembly pierced the violet skies of Harmonious Prime. Inside the vast chamber, representatives of 100 spacefaring civilizations gathered in unprecedented emergency session. The chamber's usual serenity had given way to an atmosphere of barely contained panic. High Speaker Zenith, a being of pure light and quantum resonance, flickered anxiously before the assembled delegates. "The resonance empire has fallen," she announced, her voice carrying the weight of trillion lives lost. Their entire civilization, gone in mere days. The chamber erupted in chaos. The Resonance Empire had been among the most advanced civilizations in known space, their mastery of quantum mechanics and energy manipulation unrivaled. If they could fall so quickly. "Show them," Zenith commanded, and the chamber's holographic systems activated. The footage was devastating. Massive beings of pure energy, each the size of a small moon, consuming entire planets. Their very presence warped spacetime, rendering conventional weapons useless. Defense fleets armed with the most sophisticated quantum weaponry were swept aside like dust before a solar wind. "The luminous ones," Zenith continued, "as they call themselves, have already consumed 3 major civilizations. Our best estimates suggest they will reach the core worlds within 2 standard months." Admiral Vex of the militant Concordiate rose, his crystalline exoskeleton catching the light. "We've already deployed our combined fleets. Quantum torpedoes, dark matter disruptors, even experimental timeline fracture weapons. Nothing affects these beings. They simply exist at a higher energy state than anything we can generate." "What about the Ascendant?" someone called out. The chamber grew quiet. The Ascendant, beings of pure thought who had transcended physical form eons ago, were the Concordiate's last resort in any crisis. "They tried," Zenith replied softly. "The luminous ones consumed them too. These entities feed on energy itself. The more advanced the civilization, the more appetizing we are to them." In the back of the chamber, a small figure stood. Unlike the energy beings, crystalline entities, and other advanced forms of life that filled the chamber, this delegate appeared almost primitive. Ambassador Chen of Earth was entirely biological, wearing a simple environmental suit to survive in the chamber's exotic atmosphere. "Perhaps," Chen said, her voice carrying clearly despite her size, "that is exactly why you need us." The chamber turned to stare at the human. Earth was among the youngest civilizations in the Concordiate, barely spacefaring by most standards. Their technology was considered crude, relying heavily on physical materials rather than energy manipulation or quantum engineering. "With respect, Ambassador," Admiral Vex began, "your people still use chemical rockets and metallic hulls. What could you possibly—" "Exactly," Chen interrupted, a smile playing at her lips. "We're too primitive to be appetizing. Our technology is too basic to be affected by their energy manipulation. And most importantly," she paused, letting her words sink in, "we're very, very good at killing things bigger than us." The chamber erupted in discussion. Zenith raised her energy form to its full height, silencing the chaos. "Explain," she commanded. "Humanity evolved on what you would call a death world," Chen continued. "We survived ice ages with stone tools. We hunted mammals larger than your shuttlecraft with sharpened sticks. When we couldn't outfight something, we outthought it. Even now, our weapons aren't based on energy or quantum manipulation. They're physical, kinetic, chemical. Primitive, yes, but perhaps that's exactly what we need." She gestured to the hologram still showing the luminous ones. "They exist at a higher energy state. Fine. Let's see how they handle lower energy states. They manipulate spacetime. Good for them. A rock doesn't care about spacetime when it's moving fast enough. They consume energy. Let's give them something they can't digest." "You're suggesting," Admiral Vex began, "I'm suggesting that humanity's greatest strength has always been our ability to kill things that by all rights should be able to kill us easily. We're offering our full military support. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. Not because we're noble. Chen smiled, showing teeth in a way that made several delegates distinctly uncomfortable, but because this is exactly the kind of impossible fight humans live for. High Speaker Zenith's form pulsed as she considered the offer. Your species has a reputation for unpredictable solutions. That's one way to put it, Chen agreed. The luminous ones want to consume advanced civilizations. Let's show them what a primitive one can do. In the silence that followed, the assembled delegates looked at each other. They had tried sophistication. They had tried advanced technology. Perhaps it was time to try something different. Very well, Zenith declared. Humanity will lead our defense. As the chamber erupted in discussion once again, Chen quietly sent a message back to Earth Command. Green light. Send everything we've got. And tell them to bring the really stupid ideas. Those are the ones that usually work best. The war for survival was about to begin, and humanity was about to show the galaxy why sometimes the most dangerous species was the one that never learned it couldn't win. Unconventional warriors. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the cargo hold of the EFSS Prometheus, surrounded by what the Concordiate would probably consider the strangest fleet ever assembled. The massive space wasn't filled with sleek warships or sophisticated quantum weaponry. Instead, it housed dozens of modified mining rigs, construction equipment, and what looked suspiciously like a repurposed garbage compactor. Status report, she called out, watching her crews work. Unlike the energy beings and crystalline forms that populated most of the galaxy, her people were thoroughly physical, sweating, cursing, and occasionally hitting things with wrenches when they wouldn't cooperate. Commander Rodriguez approached, his work uniform stained with grease. We've modified the industrial freezing units as planned. They're not pretty, but they should be able to create localized zones of extreme cold. If these luminous ones are energy-based, well, everything has a condensation point. Chen nodded, moving through the organized chaos. Every piece of equipment they'd brought had been chosen for a specific purpose, though not necessarily its intended one. Humanity had always excelled at repurposing tools in creative ways. What about the kinetic launchers? She asked, stopping at a massive device that looked like a cross between a mining drill and a medieval catapult. Ready, Rodriguez grinned. The Concordiate thinks they're primitive because they just throw heavy things really fast. But you know what doesn't care about energy fields? Heavy things moving really fast. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of High Speaker Zenith, her luminous form casting strange shadows in the cargo hold. The alien leader had insisted on inspecting humanity's preparations personally, though Chen suspected she was having serious doubts about their approach. This is your fleet? Zenith asked, her tone carefully diplomatic. Part of it, Chen replied. The rest is being modified as we speak. We've got ice mining ships being converted into what we're calling energy sinks, construction vessels being armed with gravity anchors, and about a dozen cargo haulers that we're turning into what can best be described as very large shotguns. Zenith's form flickered in what Chen had learned to recognize as confusion. But these are industrial tools. The luminous ones have consumed civilizations with technology thousands of years more advanced than this. Exactly, Chen smiled. Tell me, what happens to a being of pure energy when you suddenly drop the local temperature to near absolute zero? Or when you hit it with several thousand tons of matter moving at relativistic speeds? Or when you trap it in a containment field designed to hold liquid nitrogen? These are untested theories, Zenith protested. That's humanity's secret, Rodriguez chimed in. We're really good at untested theories. Sometimes they'd blow up in our faces, but sometimes they work exactly as planned. And sometimes, he grinned, they work better than planned. Chen led Zenith to a holographic display showing their battle strategy. The luminous ones expect sophisticated energy weapons, quantum torpedoes, things they can understand and counter. They're not expecting mining lasers recalibrated to freeze rather than cut. They're not expecting industrial magnetic fields strong enough to contain plasma. They're certainly not expecting ships designed to survive in gas giant atmospheres charging straight at them. "This is madness," Zenith declared, but there was a note of hope in her voice. "Madness is humanity's specialty," Chen replied. "We're the species that looked at lightning and thought, I bet we can use that to power our cities. We're the ones who split the atom because we were curious what would happen. We're the ones who reached space by strapping ourselves to controlled explosions." She gestured to her crews, still working frantically to modify their equipment. Every major advancement in human history has come from someone trying something that everyone else thought was impossible. Now we're facing beings that consume energy itself, and you know what? We're actually excited about the challenge. A warning klaxon sounded throughout the ship. "Admiral," a voice called over the intercom, "we're detecting Luminous One activity in the Centauri sector. 3 colonies already gone." Chen turned to Zenith, her expression hardening. Time to see if impossible is really impossible, or just something no one's tried hard enough to accomplish yet. "Would you like to observe from our bridge?" The high speaker's form pulsed with what might have been anticipation. "You truly believe this can work?" "Honestly, no idea," Chen admitted. "But humanity's greatest achievements have usually started with someone saying this probably won't work right before trying it anyway." As they made their way to the bridge, Chen couldn't help but smile. The Luminous Ones were about to learn why humans had survived on a death world, not because they were the strongest or the most advanced, but because they were too stubborn to accept impossible odds and too creative to fight the expected way. The hunt was about to begin, and humanity was bringing every crazy idea they'd ever had to the fight. After all, when you're fighting beings that consume energy itself, sometimes the best weapon is a really big rock thrown really, really hard. First contact. First blood. The Centauri sector blazed with unnatural light as the Luminous Ones consumed their way through another solar system. They moved like living stars, each one radiating enough energy to power a civilization. 3 had already descended on the colony world of New Eden, their massive forms beginning the process of energy extraction that would leave the planet a lifeless husk. "All ships, battle positions." Admiral Chen's voice carried across the human fleet's comm system. "Remember your training. Remember why we're here. And remember, impossible just means no one's done it yet." The fleet that emerged from hyperspace would have made any conventional military commander weep. Leading the charge was the Prometheus, originally a deep space mining vessel, its hull now bristling with modified ice mining equipment. Behind it came the rest of humanity's improvised armada, cargo haulers, construction vessels, even a few converted passenger liners. "They're not reacting to our presence," Rodriguez reported from his tactical station. "Sensors indicate they don't even consider us a threat." Chen smiled grimly. "Good. All ships, execute Operation Icebox." The Luminous Ones finally noticed the approaching fleet when the first modified ice mining beam struck one of their forms. The beam, originally designed to flash freeze volatile gases for safe transport, had been amplified to near impossible levels. Where it touched the energy being's form, space itself seemed to crystallize. The entity reacted with what could only be described as shock, its massive form rippling as areas of its energy-based body began to solidify. Its companions turned their attention to the human fleet, finally recognizing them as a threat. "They're charging up," Rodriguez warned. "Energy readings off the scale." "Now they notice us," Chen muttered. "All ships, Phase 2. Show them why you don't pick a fight with people who mine asteroid fields for fun." The Luminous Ones released their attack, beams of pure energy that could have vaporized conventional warships. But the human fleet had prepared for this. The converted cargo haulers activated their magnetic shields, not the sophisticated energy barriers used by advanced races, but crude electromagnetic fields designed to protect ships during solar storms. The energy attacks splashed against these primitive defenses, not because the shields were particularly strong, but because they were too simple to be affected by the Luminous One's sophisticated energy manipulation. All ships, weapons free, Chen ordered. Let's show them what humans mean by hitting hard. The fleet's response was anything but elegant. Modified mining drills fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Construction vessels launched clouds of supercooled particles. The converted garbage compactor, which everyone had quietly dubbed the Yeet Cannon, began hurling masses of compressed matter directly at the energy beings. The Luminous One's response was visible even from space: confusion. Their entire existence was based on manipulating and consuming energy, but now they faced opponents using the most basic forces of physics against them. How do you defend against an attack that isn't energy-based at all? Just very large objects moving very fast. Direct hit. Rodriguez called out as one of their kinetic rounds struck the partially frozen Luminous One. The impact shattered its crystallized form, sending fragments spinning into space. For the first time in recorded history, one of the energy beings had been permanently disabled. The remaining Luminous Ones reacted with what could only be described as panic. They attempted to retreat, only to find themselves caught in overlapping fields of industrial-strength magnetic containment. Technology designed to hold plasma during mining operations, now repurposed as a trap for beings of pure energy. Deploy the null bombs, Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos of battle. From the fleet's rear, specially modified pods launched toward the trapped entities. These weren't conventional weapons. They were literally the opposite. Based on the technology used to create supercooled environments for sensitive equipment, they were designed to create zones of near absolute zero temperature, the ultimate enemy of energy-based life forms. The Luminous Ones tried to escape, but caught between the magnetic fields and the spreading zones of extreme cold, their mighty forms began to flicker and fade. They had evolved to consume and manipulate energy. They had no defense against its absence. Status report, Chen demanded as the light show finally began to die down. 2 Luminous Ones completely neutralized, Rodriguez reported, his voice filled with disbelief. The third is retreating. Rather quickly, actually. Reading massive energy fluctuations in its form. I think we actually scared it. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Send word to the Concordiate. Tell them humanity has found a way to fight back. And tell them to prepare more ships for conversion. The Luminous Ones just learned they're not invincible, which means they'll be back. And next time, they'll be angry. As the fleet began rescue operations for the colony below, Chen stared at the fragments of crystallized energy being still floating in space. Humanity had just proven why they had survived on their Deathworld, not through overwhelming power or advanced technology, but through the simple, stubborn refusal to accept defeat and the creativity to turn anything into a weapon. Get me a full damage report, she ordered. And someone please tell engineering to stop calling the garbage compactor the Yeet Cannon. It's technically a high-velocity mass relocator. The bridge crew's laughter was cut short by a new alarm. Long-range sensors were detecting massive energy signatures, more luminous ones, and a lot of them, converging on their position. Well, Chen said, straightening her uniform, let's see what other primitive solutions we can come up with. After all, humans do our best work when we're improvising. Defiance's edge. The observation deck of New Eden Colony offered a perfect view of humanity's frenzied preparations. Where once crystalline spires had stretched gracefully toward the stars, now stood brutal but effective fortifications. Industrial freezing units, salvaged from a dozen ice mining operations, formed a defensive perimeter. Magnetic containment fields, originally designed for plasma mining, created an invisible but potent barrier against energy-based attacks. Admiral Chen stood beside high-speaker Zenith, watching crews install what looked like a massive version of their successful mass relocator weapon. The device's official designation was Kinetic Energy Displacement System, but the crews had already started calling it Big Yeet. Your people work quickly, Zenith observed, her luminous form reflecting off the reinforced windows. But these defenses seem crude. Crude works, Chen replied, studying a holographic display of the system's defensive grid. The luminous ones expect sophisticated quantum barriers and energy weapons. They don't expect to be hit with what amounts to very large rocks moving very fast. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways. The deck vibrated as another construction vessel descended through the atmosphere, its holds filled with raw materials scavenged from the system's asteroid belt. Humanity had been busy since their first victory, converting every available resource into weapons and defenses. We've detected multiple energy signatures approaching, Rodriguez reported, joining them at the window. Bigger than anything we've seen before. They're learning, adapting to our tactics. Chen nodded. So are we. Show her the new toys, Commander. Rodriguez activated a different holographic display, showing several new weapon designs. We've been studying the fragments from our first engagement. The luminous ones aren't just energy. They have a structure, a pattern to their existence. Disrupt that pattern, and they fall apart, Chen finished. We've modified our mining sensors to detect these patterns. Every weapon in our arsenal is being calibrated to target these structural weaknesses. The deck rumbled again, but this time it wasn't from construction. Long-range sensors were detecting massive energy fluctuations at the system's edge. The luminous ones were coming, and they were bringing an army. They're afraid, Zenith realized, her form pulsing with surprise. I can feel it in their energy signatures. They've never faced an enemy they couldn't simply overwhelm or consume. They don't understand how such primitive weapons could hurt them. That's humanity's greatest strength, Chen smiled. We're really good at doing things people say are impossible. We've spent our entire history fighting enemies bigger and stronger than us. We survived ice ages with stone tools. We crossed oceans in wooden boats. We reached space by strapping ourselves to controlled explosions. She turned to face the high speaker. The luminous ones think technology equals advancement. They'd forgotten that sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. They can manipulate quantum fields. Great. Let's see how they handle a tungsten rod moving at relativistic speeds. A new alarm sounded through the colony. The enemy fleet had been spotted. Dozens of energy beings moving as one. Their combined power enough to tear a planet apart. All defense stations, battle positions, Chen ordered through the colony's comm system. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. And remember, sometimes the most advanced weapon is the one your enemy doesn't expect. As crews rushed to their stations, Chen studied the approaching enemy force. The luminous ones had indeed adapted, their forms now protected by complex energy fields designed to resist the freezing attacks that had proved so effective in the first battle. They think they've countered our weapons, Rodriguez observed. They've countered our old weapons, Chen corrected. Time to show them some new ones. Activate Project Entropy. Across the colony's defensive perimeter, new devices hummed to life. Based on the principles that had allowed them to defeat the first luminous ones, these weapons didn't try to overpower the enemy. They simply introduced chaos into their carefully ordered energy patterns. Your people truly believe they can win this fight? Zenith asked, watching the final preparations. Win? Chen laughed. We're not fighting to win. We're fighting because someone said it was impossible to beat them. Humanity has a long history of doing exactly what everyone says can't be done. The first wave of luminous ones entered weapons range, their massive forms darkening the sky like artificial eclipses. But this time, they faced a prepared enemy. This time, humanity wasn't just improvising. They had a plan. All stations, Chen commanded, her voice carrying across the entire defense network. Show them why you don't pick a fight with a species that turned their entire industrial base into weapons in less than a week. The battle for New Eden was about to begin, and humanity was about to prove once again that sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the one with the most advanced technology. It's the one crazy enough to throw rocks at a god. Humanity's gambit. The skies above New Eden burned with impossible light as dozens of luminous ones descended upon the colony. Their combined power turned the atmosphere itself into a swirling maelstrom of energy, fierce enough to tear apart any conventional defense. But humanity's defenses were far from conventional. Multiple contacts, closing fast, Rodriguez reported from his station in the underground command center. They're trying to overwhelm our magnetic containment fields with sheer power. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display, her expression calm despite the chaos unfolding above. They still don't understand. Activate the entropy fields. Across the colony's perimeter, the new weapons powered up. Based on their studies of the captured Luminous One fragments, these devices didn't try to match the entity's overwhelming power. Instead, they introduced subtle disruptions into their energy patterns, like throwing sand into perfectly calibrated machinery. Pattern disruption successful, Rodriguez called out. Their front line is destabilizing. Wait, they're adapting. Energy signatures are changing. The luminous ones had indeed learned from their previous defeat. Their massive forms shifted, creating complex harmonics that neutralized the entropy fields. They pressed forward, their advance now seemingly unstoppable. They've countered our primary defense, High Speaker Zenith observed, her luminous form dimming with concern. Chen smiled. No, they've done exactly what we wanted them to do. All stations, execute Operation Newton's Revenge. Across the battlefield, humanity's true plan revealed itself. The entropy fields had been a trap, forcing the luminous ones to alter their energy patterns into a specific configuration. Now, as they pressed their advantage, they flew directly into humanity's real weapon. Launch the resonance bombs, Chen ordered. From concealed silos around the colony, dozens of primitive-looking projectiles launched skyward. They weren't sophisticated quantum weapons or energy cannons. They were simply hollow shells filled with crystallized fragments from the first defeated luminous one. The fragments, Zenith realized. They're still maintaining their original energy pattern. Exactly, Chen confirmed. When we studied the fragments, we noticed they continued to resonate at their original frequency. The same frequency the luminous ones are now trying to avoid. Basic physics. When two waves meet, the resonance bombs detonated among the luminous ones' ranks. The crystallized fragments released their stored energy patterns, creating a cascading wave of destructive interference. The effect was devastating. Unable to maintain their complex new forms, several luminous ones began to collapse, their energy patterns tearing themselves apart. Direct hits on multiple targets, Rodriguez reported. Their formation is breaking up. They're retreating. But Chen wasn't finished. Launch Phase 2. Show them why you don't leave humans time to get creative. The colony's main defense grid powered up. Dozens of modified mining lasers, their beams calibrated to the exact frequency needed to disrupt the luminous one's energy patterns, opened fire. Mass drivers, loaded with specially treated projectiles designed to absorb and disperse energy, launched their payloads at relativistic speeds. The luminous ones found themselves caught in a crossfire of weapons specifically designed to counter their every advantage. Their superior energy manipulation meant nothing against simple kinetic impacts. Their complex defensive patterns were shattered by precisely calibrated frequencies. Their ability to consume energy worked against them as specially designed traps forced them to absorb destructive resonance patterns. They're breaking, Rodriguez shouted, multiple entities destabilizing. Complete pattern collapse in their rear ranks. The remaining ones are pulling back. Through the command center screens, they watched as the mighty luminous ones, who had consumed entire civilizations, fled from what they had dismissed as primitive weapons. But in their retreat, they learned one final lesson about humanity. All ships, execute final containment, Chen ordered. The human fleet, hidden in the system's asteroid belt, sprang its trap. Modified cargo ships and mining vessels, arranged in a precise pattern, activated their magnetic containment fields simultaneously. The retreating luminous ones found themselves caught in an interlocking network of fields, each one resonating at a frequency designed to disrupt their energy patterns. Pattern disruption at critical levels, Rodriguez reported. Their forms are collapsing. Wait, something's happening. The trapped luminous ones, facing complete destruction, did something unprecedented. They communicated. We yield. The message came through on all frequencies, the entity's vast consciousness struggling to form words. How? How did you defeat us? Chen stepped forward, addressing their fallen enemies. We didn't beat you with superior technology or overwhelming force. We beat you because humans have spent their entire history learning to punch above their weight class. We survived on a death world not because we were the strongest, but because we learned to turn everything into a weapon. You thought our primitive technology made us weak. It made us deadly. The luminous ones, their once mighty forms now contained and diminished, sent one final message. We will remember. Humanity is not to be underestimated. As the containment fields completed their work, transforming the once mighty entities into manageable crystalline forms, High Speaker Zenith turned to Chen. Your people have saved the galaxy. How can we ever repay such a debt? Chen watched as recovery teams began collecting the crystallized remains of the luminous ones for study. Just remember this. Never judge a species by their technology level. Sometimes the most dangerous beings in the galaxy are the ones who learn to survive without relying on advanced technology. She smiled, watching her crews already beginning to modify their weapons, with new insights gained from the battle. After all, humanity didn't become the galaxy's best problem solvers by having the best tools. We did it by learning to use simple tools in creative ways. And now, she gestured to the collected crystalline fragments. We have some very interesting new tools to get creative with. The Battle of New Eden would be remembered throughout the galaxy as the day when a primitive species proved that true advancement wasn't measured by technological sophistication, but by the creativity and determination to use whatever tools were available to overcome impossible odds. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the few surviving luminous ones spread a new message to any who would listen. Beware the Deathworlders. They don't need advanced technology to be deadly. They just need a problem to solve and the stubborn determination to solve it.